welcome everybody to this session of the Wellington Dynamics and Power Platform User Group. This is actually the first session that we're having this year that is a sort of a more conventional session, although it is online. Hopefully, maybe next month we'll start the hybrid sessions again. But so far we've had the Power Platform Global Bootcamp that we ran in February, and we're now starting with what's new in Wave 1 2022, which is the April release coming up in Dynamics 365, as well as the Power Platform. So what I'll do is I'll start just by giving a bit of an announcement. So the event launch, which is driven by Microsoft, is happening on the 6th of April. So this is the official event where all the different program managers or product managers from Microsoft get together and talk about the release notes. What are we going to expect in that first wave of releases that's coming up? And probably they'll stretch it a little bit and talk about the roadmap and some of the things that are coming up in the near future. So if you're interested and if you want to hear this event sort of firsthand, you can sort of register by going to the URL that is showing on the screen right now. And then go and have a look at who's going to be presenting. And actually, this is the list of presenters. So at the head of them is Charles Lamana, who's now the corporate VP, covering all business applications. So he is sort of what James Phillips used to be in that space. Usually it used to be headed by James Phillips. This time is going to be Charles Lamana. And you have the entire team that is going to be talking about all the different capabilities that they've introduced part of the platform. If you remember, last time we had the Microsoft Business Applications Summit in New Zealand, so the New Zealand version of the MBAS, we had Ryan Cunningham, who was our keynote speaker. So lots of knowledge. They know the platform inside out, and they are the ones that actually build all the goodness that we see in every release. So if you're interested, go and join it. Otherwise, the recording will be available later on, and there'll be lots of blogs and posts about sort of summarizing some of the capabilities that were introduced in there. Keep in mind that it is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, 4 a.m. in the morning. But you know, that's what the price you have to pay. Get up early just to have a look at the latest and the greatest. Cool. So just quickly introducing our speakers for today. We're going to have, I'll try not to laugh while I'm saying that, MVP, Microsoft or Most Valuable Filipina in the team, Marianne, who's going to be talking about sort of the marketing capabilities available in the Wave 1 release. So what's new in there? Linn is a business applications MVP based in Wellington, is going to cover some of the maker experience capabilities. So, you know, all the goodness that we get while building the applications that we like and love. And I myself, business applications MVP as well, based in Wellington. I'll be covering a little bit on the maker side, but also some of the really cool features that I've been looking forward to see come to life from a while ago. You know, it's finally now in this release that they started sort of emerging. Either they're coming out of public preview and turning into general availability, or they actually just been introduced now. So being MVPs, we get a little bit of early access to some of those features, and we get to play around with them a little bit, and then we sort of share that goodness with you guys. So the rest of my slides, I've got 4 or 5 features that I'm going to be presenting. That will probably take me about 15-20 minutes, and then I'll hand over to Linn and Marianne. So the rest of my slides are basically title slides, and then I'll swap between my desktops and I'll talk a little bit about or I'll demo those features. So let's have a look. So the first one that I want to talk about is the GPT-3 ideas. So this capability will allow people to write in natural language the information that they want to extract from the environment. And GPT-3 is an AI engine that would retrieve this natural language and turn it into a PowerFX query that will go into Dataverse and retrieve the information. So I'll quickly demo that capability. So what I've got in here is a Power Platform instance that I'm running. This is using the DXC Technology tenancy, which is the company that I work for. And I've got a few tabs open in there. As you can see in here, I've got a couple of applications. The first one is a Canvas app. The second one is a model-driven app. So in this tab, I've got the Canvas app up and running. So this is the editor that allows us to edit Canvas apps. Canvas apps are the apps that allow you to build things that are pixel perfect. So as you can see in here, I've got a list, pixel perfect. I can move it, put it anywhere. I've got a sort of a header. Again, I can move it, and then I've got a text box in here. So we're all familiar with Canvas apps. But the new bit that they've introduced, part of the GPT-3 introduction and the ideas, is that when you select a specific gallery, you've got that bit in here, that a tab called Ideas. So if I go and click on that Ideas, there is a little example in here that says sort accounts by account name, and there's a little text box where you can type in the information that you want to retrieve from your instance. So let's give it a try. So I can say get accounts. So it knows it has IntelliSense. It knows exactly what we're trying to retrieve from there. So get accounts where created on, and as you can see, it automatically detects that there's a field called created on. And then I'm going to say I want anything that was created in January 2022, for example. So rather than just fix that spelling mistake, in January 2022. So if I click on Get Idea, it's going to send that to the engine and try to understand what we're trying to achieve in here. And as you can see in here, it understood that we're trying to get accounts where created on is between those two dates. You know, a really good way of trying to get the intent. If you don't know the syntax, try to put it into the ideas and then try to build your own query. And it's actually quite powerful. I've written a blog about it. I started working on that in the early stages of the public preview, and it has increased significantly in terms of understanding the intent, in terms of returning results that are very accurate, and in terms of the capabilities that it can do as well. So really cool feature. I really encourage you guys to go and have a look at it. Cool. Moving on into the next feature. This is something that we've been asking for a very long time. And when I say that, I mean like, you know, maybe probably close to 10 years. So this one is called polymorphic lookups. So we know that in Dynamics 365, as well as in the Power Platform, you can have relationships between tables. So for example, an account might have multiple contacts. A contact might have a parent account. Now, to date, all of those have been sort of one way. So you can only have one relationship to another table, meaning that the parent account can only be an account and nothing else. Whereas in the latest release, they've introduced polymorphic lookups. Now, through the different sort of releases over the years, they introduced one lookup that was polymorphic, and that was customer, where customer could be either an account or a contact. Whereas now with polymorphic lookup, you can create your own. You can build a lookup to a range of tables. So you can say, I've got, for example, communication. And that communication lookup could be a letter, could be an email, could be anything you want, a telephone or so on. So you can have one lookup that is connected to multiple tables out of the box. The only thing is that as it stands right now, there is no user interface way of creating polymorphic lookups. You can only do it using APIs. However, our friends at sort of looking after the XRM toolbox created an add-on, a plugin that allows you to create that using a user interface. So let's quickly have a look at it. So I've got my XRM toolbox open in here. Looks like it's stuck at trying to connect. I'll try to open that again. Just click on polymorphic lookup. Okay, so it's working. Ignore the little connection that is stuck in here. But you can create a new one in here. So you can give it a name. You can you can select the solution that you want to work in. So I'm already connected to an instance that I've got in there. I'm going to select base solution, for example, and I can sort of either select a reference to a table. So this is the table where I'm starting my lookup. So I'm in accounts and I want to have a lookup to something else. And given that there is nothing that is polymorphic right now, it's asking me to create a new polymorphic lookup. So create new, and then I can give it a name. So for example, written communication as an example. And then I can say, you know, I want emails to be part of it, click the checkbox. I want letter to be part of it, click the checkbox. And then I can carry on. And once I'm done, then I can click on create polymorphic lookup. And this is going to create a lookup that looks just like any other lookup out of the box, except it's going to be connected to multiple tables. So really cool stuff. You can think about all the capabilities that we can do. Typically in Wellington, a lot of the government departments that we work for have this the request of applications. An application could be an application of type A, someone submitting an application for a driving license, someone submitting an application for a passport, and those could be multiple tables. So you can have a lookup to applications, and that could be any polymorphic type of application. Cool. Moving on into the next capability. So this is something that I know it can be done, and sort of I've played a lot with those capabilities, but now it's available out of the box. Unfortunately, I cannot demo it because it hasn't gone in public preview yet. So this is called conversation intelligence. It's available in the release notes. There is a little sort of URL in there that talks about it. And what that allows you to do is to record a phone conversation. So I'm recording the Teams meeting right now, and what it's doing behind the scenes, this is transcribing the text. So as I'm talking, it's understanding what I'm saying, hopefully, and then it's recording that as text. Now, what this capability allows you to do is not only record that and be able to search for content and know exactly when that sentence was said or when that specific keyword was mentioned, but it also allows you to introduce sentiment analysis on top of that. So as you can see in here, there are sort of red colors and blue colors, and that tells you that, you know, the customer was, you know, positive. Hopefully I can zoom in a little bit. So there's a positive sort of tone, there is a neutral tone, there's a negative tone, when did it happen? And then you can see things like in here, it seems like there's a positive monologue that was happening. And it allows you to understand who the different players are that are part of that conversation. So this is the longest monologue. So it allows you to know if someone is angry, for example, and talking for a long time, when did this happen? And then you'll be able to understand where it is in the context of the conversation. So really, really cool features. You can imagine what that can help you with in a context of a contact center. Once it is available, I promise I'll go in and talk about it in one of our upcoming sessions. Really cool feature. Cool. So a couple more that I want to cover before I hand over to Linn and Marianne. So the next one is custom pages. Custom pages are what we call convergence of Canvas apps as well as model-driven apps into one type of application. What Microsoft wants to do is allow you the freedom to create the one or the other at any time during your application authoring process. So in other terms, you don't have to decide upfront if you want to do a Canvas app or if you want to do a model-driven app. You just start building an app. And then with time, you can say that page looks better as a Canvas app. That page looks better as a model-driven app. So you can pick and choose which one you want. So let's have a look at how you can do that. Now, custom pages have been around since the last release. However, they are becoming GA now. And part of it was already GA, so the runtime was already GA. However, there is the concept of using components. So in Canvas apps, you can create a page, and in that page, you can use reusable components. And that was in public preview. Now it's all going to go into generally available for the entire capability. So what I've got in here is a model-driven app editor. This is the new one, the modern one, not the classic one. How did I get there? So going back into my solution, I've got a couple of apps that are up and running in here. When you have a model-driven app and you click on the ellipsis, you can either edit it, and that takes you to the classic editor, or you can go into the new editor, and then that allows you to visualize it in a slightly different way. So what do I do in here? I click on Add Page, and as you can see, there is custom in here that is in preview. I can click on Next. I can create a new one or use an existing one, for example. And in here, I can say sample page as an example. Click on Add. And then what this is going to do is open the Canvas app experience and allow us to create those applications just using Pixel Perfect, just like you're creating a normal Canvas app. The experience is slightly different than what we've got in Canvas, but generally speaking, most of the capabilities will work in either the one or the other. And then once you're ready, you save it, then it will be displayed in your model-driven app as a link available on the left navigation. So really easy to use, really straightforward. Just conscious of time, I'm not going to spend too much time waiting for this to appear, so I'm going to just move on to the next slide. All right, so the next one is feature toggles. Again, this is a really big capability that is coming into the platform, and we've been waiting for it for quite some time. Now, what you will notice is that if you go into an application, so let's go to this application editor, for example, and you can go to settings in here. If you go to settings, you'll have a tab that will show you general information about the app, any features that you can toggle on and off. So you got all those toggles in here. A good example is something that Linn maybe will talk about later is the in-app notifications. And if you click on upcoming, you've got some additional capabilities that are in public preview. So this is the in-app notification that you've got in here. Given that it's a preview, you can switch it on and off depending on if you're ready to take it into your environment or not. So anything that is generally available will appear under features. Anything that is sort of in public preview will appear under upcoming features. However, those toggles are purely controlled by Microsoft. So you cannot create your own feature to the next release that you're sort of building, another sort of capability, another configuration customization that you're introducing that you want to toggle on and off. Maybe because the business is not quite ready to take it. So you think about change management, they've got too much on their plate. They didn't get the time to actually go and train the users to go and use that new capability. You don't want to enable something and confuse people. But you do want to minimize risk and you want to deploy it and you want to make sure it's working, but you want to switch it off. So you introduce it as a feature capability. So using feature toggles. So the way you do that, let's see if I'm actually in the right solution. So I've got a solution in here. This one is called feature toggle. And on the settings in here, you will notice that there is setting definitions. So how did I create the setting definition? I went to new, I went to more, and I went to settings, and I created the setting definition. And that creates a feature, a definition of a setting, basically. And you can add some information in there, which we'll have a look at in a second. And then after you do that, you create a setting environment value. So this will define whether that specific setting can be switched on or off in different environments. Can it be at the application level? Can it be at the tenancy level? Can it be at the instance level? So you can define exactly how this is going to behave. So I've created a couple in here. One is called Awesome XRM Enterprise Feature. So let's click on that. And as you can see, it will show you this sort of quick create capability that is available on the right-hand side. You can define the scope on where this can be changed. You can define the type of release, whether it's generally available or preview. So as I said, by changing those, they will appear in the settings eventually. And then you can define whether they can be overridden. And then in here, it will pick up every single app that you've got, every single app that it will detect, and you can go and say whether this feature is on or off. You can define a data type, so it could be a yes or a no, it could be a string, it could be something else. So you can get full control over that. Now, a couple of caveats. As it stands right now, it's not available in the settings that I just demonstrated. This is something on the roadmap that Microsoft is working on, so that when you create a setting definition, then you'll be able to see it as a toggle in the settings. The only way you can control it right now is through the solution. So you can go into your solution and you can go and click on the value in here. So let's have a look. Maybe DynamicsCon will be a better one. Yeah, so as you can see in here, this is one of the apps that I've got called Customer Feedback App. And if I click on that, then you can define whether that feature is on or off in that specific instance. Now, that's all good. However, most of the time, you don't want people to go and deal with it manually because that introduces human error. So the only way that, the other ways that you can do it is either through PowerShell, or you can also do it using the REST API. So I've got in here an example where I'm controlling it using Postman. So I'm already logged in. I've got a token in here that allows me to connect to Dynamics 365 REST APIs using the OData endpoint. So that might look familiar in here, where you've got your sort of URL and then API data version 9 and then app settings. And this is the GUID of the app setting. App settings are nothing but data. So you can look them up using advanced find. You can look them up using the REST API as well. And then you can go and update them as required. So in here, I'm looking for a specific app setting, and I'm just retrieving the value in here. So when I click on send, then it returns that JSON payload, and it tells me whether that feature is on or off. So it's showing as that one being on at the moment. You can go and do a patch. So in here, this is a patch request that also goes to the app settings, and it also returns the value. So I want to go and update it, and I want to get a value back. And what you would have is in the body of your patch request, you would have the value that you want to change it to. So let's say we set that one to false. Now, when I click on send, this is going to go to the server, say, set it to false, and then come back and tell me what that value is. What you will notice is that the value is still set to true. And the reason for that is because the application settings can only change once the app itself has been published. So always remember that once you go and change the value that you've got in there, make sure you go and do a publish for the specific app where this is happening, and then it will come back with the actual value on whether the feature has been toggled to on or off. And then how do you use it in your application? At the moment, you probably use it just in things like JavaScript or in your plugins. So in there, you'll have to do a request to go and fetch the information associated with this toggle. Is it on? Is it off? And then within your work, you can, in your JavaScript, for example, you can say if feature is on, then trigger this code. If feature is off, then trigger this code. Same with the plugins. You can also do it in Power Automate. So Power Automate can branch and do one logic if the feature is on, or can do another logic if the feature is off. So really cool capabilities, really awesome ways of actually using that functionality to enable new features into the environment. Cool. So this is the end of my section. Just a few links in here. So I've blogged a little bit about the feature toggles and the GPT-3 capabilities. Go and have a look at them. There's some nice links to the official documentation by Microsoft if you're interested in it. And I've also added a couple of links for the official announcements for the polymorphic lookups, as well as the intelligence, conversation intelligence with Dynamics 365. So you'll be able to follow the announcements and have a look at when they are available. Cool. That's it for my section. Lynn or Marianne, who's ready to go to the next phase?
Yep, I'll go.
Okay. Over to you, Marianne.
Sweet. Thank you, Rami. And just share my screen. So today I'll be covering the Dynamics 365 Marketing 2022 Wave 1 release. Share. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, we can see it.
Cool. So with the Dynamics 365 marketing release, so Microsoft, there's three focus that they're focusing on this Wave 1 release. So first is on the collaborative apps. So that includes, improving the collaboration across people and within the organization. And second one is the moments-based marketing, which is focused on event-driven. So let's say, you wanna trigger a customer journey, for example, based on the customer action. So they've improved in that area. And the third one is on data and AI. So collaboration, for example, with integration with customer insights and getting the application more intelligent, giving you, for example, when you're doing a marketing email, giving you some enhancements on introducing or suggesting an image, for example, to use, and kind of stuff. So first off on the collaborative apps is the built-in Microsoft Teams chat. So for example, if you're collaborating on creating a marketing email, you'll be able to do a Teams chat on the side pane. So I'm going to show you how that looks like. So here you can enable that under the settings. So there's a Teams chat here. Just need to enable all those and accept the terms and conditions. And then when you're going into the marketing, into a record, there is a icon here that will allow to pop up the Teams chat integration. So that's still in preview. I didn't get to fully integrate this. That's why I can show you how I can chat with in here right now, but this is how it looks like. You can also have it on a contact record. So if I open a contact record here and open the Teams chat, so it will show you what was linked into that record. So it's actually really good in terms of getting that history of conversation within that record. Cool. So you can use all the team chat capabilities. It can show you all the recent chat, and you can set it up to several entities that you want this team integration to be enabled for. The first one, and the next one is a unified view of customer activities. So previously, whenever we needed to see, all the email, like email open or clicks, we needed to go to a related tab to see that information. But in this new release, you'll be able to see that on the timeline. So it's really good to see, directly when you open a record, the recent activity of a customer. It will also allow you to do search and filtering. So that would work in here. For example, if you want to select, just to see when was the email opened by so-and-so, you will be able to do that now within the timeline. Next one is around trigger journey. So in this update, you will be able to create new triggers or add more triggers. So at the moment, this is the trigger. So if I go into the real-time marketing, and let's just have a look at the available triggers. So here, previously, on the outbound marketing, you only able to trigger a journey through a segment, but now, you can say that I want to start a journey if an incident is created or if a contact is created. So this allows you to not just, this gives you the flexibility of when do you want to trigger specific journeys. Even if, for example, an email has bounced or an email has been delivered, so you'll be able to have that flexibility. Next one is, so they've added this flexibility on a trigger, and within a trigger, you can then kick off a separate journey or a power automate. So as you can see here, this is if that, for example, this event here happened and you want to then trigger a power automate, you'll be able to do that. So I'll show you how that looks like in the Power Automate. So for example, you've got a trigger that you say, I want to add this. If a contact is added and that person is from you want to add that to the Wellington contact. So not a good example, but how that works is you can perform an unbound action, and you can look at the trigger. The action name will be in your trigger. So you just open the trigger, and under the function here, you'll be able to select this, and that will be your unbound action in your Power Automate. And you'll be able to, I haven't tested this yet, but this is the mapping between whatever you receive from the journey to wherever you want this to use this data. So you'll be able to do that. Cool. Next one is, so those are my top four for the collaborative apps. Now this one here is around the moment space. So they've added a, initially when you do an event base, you can select a trigger, but you're not able to do a condition here. So for example, if you only want to trigger that journey when a high priority case is created, you'll be able to do that now, because previously you can only select when a case is added. It's not flexible enough to say, add further condition to the trigger. So in this release, you'll be able to do that, and you get more control over how you want to trigger your journeys, which I think is really good. Aside from that, they also added additional triggers for marketing. So we have a marketing event check-in, when a registration is canceled, created, or when a form is submitted as well. So you'll be able to make use of that triggers. Next one here is use outbound subscription centers in real-time journeys. I think previously you're only allowed to do subscription centers in outbound marketing, but now they'll be available in real-time journeys, and you can use those subscription centers in either both of them. And also on moments base, you can take action on your SMS replies. I haven't set this up yet in New Zealand, but I see some articles where this is set up with a telco in US. So yeah, you'll be able to make use of the SMS replies, and then based on that reply, if they keyword there, for example, you want to subscribe, yes or no. If they say yes, then you add that person to your subscription list, or if no, then you do something else like send an email. With the data and AI, now they have a predefined use of a predefined dynamic text. What this means is you don't previously, in order for you to do personalization, you needed to, you need to know what is the schema behind the scene. Or for example, the contact record, what was the schema for the, let's say the city field or the last name field. So in here, you can, with the recent update, you'll be able to create a more, you don't need to know the schema, how the schema is behind the scene is done. You just need to then, someone can do that for you and map that, first name is equal to so-and-so in the back end. So those people who are, the marketers that actually don't deal with the backend stuff will be able to just pick it up from the predefined, call it predefined tokens. Oh, and another one for data and AI are the reusable content blocks. So they made an enhancement. Initially for the content blocks, you're only able to do text and images. it's very limited, and now they've given more. You can now do more layout. They now have buttons and also personalization. So they made a improvement for the content blocks. And so I think I haven't added it, but with the as part of the AI data and AI as well, they made an improvement on the if and else of conditional showing of sections. So, for example, you have a content block and you want to only show that content block if the customer is from Wellington. So, initially, you needed to write a bit of a code for that to happen, but now they made it simple. English, like just drag and drop, and then you'll be able to do your conditions within the UI. So you don't need to write a code for that. Cool. I think those are the top marketing updates that I have, Rami.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Marianne. Really insightful. Linn, do you want to take it over? And then we've got 20 minutes to go. So maybe we'll leave a few minutes at the end for questions. Over to you, Linn.
Yeah, sure. I'll just share my presentation slides. Okay. Hello, everyone. Today agenda is mainly for my session. It's mainly focused on. Oh wait, it's not moving. Oh, okay. What's new and planned for mainly for the model-driven apps, and I break down into multiple sections. The first one is the changes. What are the changes that are coming? And the second part is the new features. So as Rami's mentioned in his session, Microsoft also utilized that feature flags to roll out this feature. So if you are comfortable and want to try it out and roll out to these features, so you can also enable for these features for these users in the admin center. Otherwise, you can also it's disabled by default, so it's not going to break anything in your system. And the last bit is a couple of upcoming features which are not available as soon as this release wave is coming in next weekend. So it will be available later in the like May or June timeline. And I'll conclude with the part where it's some of the changes coming for the makers, for customizers in the make.powerapps.com and also the flow.microsoft.com. So in terms of changes, there are not a lot. There are only a couple of changes that are changing in the UI or for the users. And one of the change is the appointment description is now supports the rich text format. So we now have this the email like body where you can compose and add all these rich text and image and make your appointments just like how you compose in your Outlook. So the second part is more of a accessibility change, and for it's very minor in the business process flow. This piece of gray areas become a bit darker, just for color contrast for people with a bit of a visibility impairment to have more able to see better in those parts. So these are the only changes that are coming. Other than that, the rest of the changes are the new features that you can, which are coming as a disable by default, and you can turn it on. So the first one is the new activity dropdown. So in in this admin center, there will be a new option for coming as the show only activities configured in the app when accessing new activity button. So what it means is when you at the moment or previously before you roll out the release wave 1, when you click on the new activity, it will show up all the activities in the whole system, like alert subscription, like campaign response, probably all these activities that we are not really used in the system. But once you enable that toggle, what will happen is it will only show the options which are used in your edit into your model-driven app. So let's say if your organization not using fax or letter, you can just exclude those activities in your model-driven app, and these will not show up in this new activity list. So that will be easier for you to do some housekeeping and only let your user see what's there relevant to the system. Another part is the modern advanced find. So at the moment, what we can have is how we edit the filters for this particular view. So once we click on edit filters, it will show the advanced filter pane on the right hand side where you can do a bit of like advanced find kind of query, but only for a particular view, this view. So the thing is, if a particular table, like for example, configuration or nationality, that kind of table is not in the sitemap, you're not able to access to that view and click on this edit filter. In that case, you have to use this the classic advanced find previously. But with this new modern advanced find option, you can enable this feature to allow the modern advanced find, and also to you can also allow the users to hide the system views, which I will explain in the next slide. So once you enable that, what will happen is it will just there will be no more advanced find button. So instead of that, there will be a search for users using the advanced filter. There's an option when you click on the global find global search area, dataverse search area, and if you click on that, it will show up all the tables in your model-driven app. So that's a good thing about this, the modern advanced find is unlike the classic advanced find, it will not show all the like hundreds of tables in your system. It will just only include the tables which are more relevant, more included in your model-driven app. So that is where you can search for the tables which are not included in your model-driven app. So the other thing is the hiding, allow the users to hide system views. That's where you have an option to manage and share views. That is a bit similar to the how you share the personal views in the advanced find. Over here, you can have the option for each view, whether you can set as a default or share or assign or delete for personal views. And if you allow the user to hide the system views, the user will be able to hide it in this bit. So not only the personal view, the user will also be able to hide the system views that are not relevant to their for the user. So the next bit is also the collaboration feature that you can enable in the admin center. Once you enable, so the user can see who is currently working on this particular record. So it's a bit more like how you currently working Office, Word, or Excel documents online, and when you can see how somebody is also editing the same document, so you can collaborate and start have a chat which part you're updating, and make sure you're not overwriting each other's changes. So, but this feature is currently only preview and only available in the account, case, opportunity, and contact tables, and it will be GA in September 2022. So together with that feature, another one is coming is showing the owner as the the contact card. So this contact card is similar to how you use in the Outlook web app, where you mouse hover on one of the contacts and it will show all this contact information. It will show the files and the emails that you have exchanged between this contact and you. So this is something useful to do this collaboration. And as the same as the previous feature, it's only available in these 4 tables at the moment in this preview feature. Another one is you can allow the users to create the Teams meeting, appointments with the Teams meeting in the Modem app. So before this features, some of my clients, when they have to create a appointments with this team URL, either they have to create the appointment in the Outlook first and sync it back and set all these recordings, or they will have to create a Dynamics 365, sync it back, and then only enable the Teams meeting in the Outlook. But now you can directly enable this team meeting link in this appointment. Once you have enabled it, there will be a URL that you can directly join from this appointment without even going to the Outlook application. This is the one thing that Rami's briefly mentioned in his slides. It's an in-app notification that has been previewed since August 2021, and this will be now available in GA in the coming release wave 1. So that's a good way to customize, and as a developer or even as a maker, you can create a notification in the flow, and you can show some sort of in-app notification that will reduce the sending out the emails or sending the Teams notification. That will be useful when you have some overdue tasks or some of the reminders that you want to notify to the users, but only within the application context. So for now, it is a preview. So as you can see in Rami's slide, you can go and enable that feature in the one of this feature in the admin center. There are a few just one upcoming features, that is the Editable Power Apps Grid Control, which is not available yet for a preview. One of the things is infinite scrolling. So this Power Apps Grid Control is the one that they released in the previous release wave, which replaced the previous read-only grids, but they are making the more improvements and updates in this Power Apps Grid Control. So infinite scrolling is, if you are familiar with mix.powerapps.com, and if you have a long list of tables or components, it is more like it just loads and shows the first 50 rows, and when you scroll towards the end, it will just did a little bit of loading, and it shows the rest of the another batch or 50 batch of the data. So it's, instead of a pagination, it's scrolling infinite at the end. So, and also if users prefer paging buttons, just like right now, they have an option to revert it back to this pagination. Not only the infinite scrolling, they will also allow the inline editing for this view and subgrids. So it will be used as the editable grid, and it will be enabled by the maker. So it is something that we can look forward to that might potentially replace the current editable grids. So there's no GA date yet, and it's only preview next month. So I also haven't seen in the action yet. So I quickly go through the some of the changes for the makers as well. One of the changes, the table hub designer, and it will show the list, the summary view of this table when in the maker portal. And you can do this inline editing of the columns and edit the data just on the fly. So that will be kind of similar to how it is at the moment in the Dataverse for Teams. And with that feature, another feature is coming is the PowerFX formulas for the columns. So you can use the PowerFX formulas to create this calculated and roll up columns. So it will be GA only in the May. So currently it's only available in the Dataverse for Teams at the moment. And another thing that has been in preview for a long time and is going to be GA in this release is the command designer for PowerFX. And hopefully over time they have improved and allow us to edit the out of the box legacy, the old legacy buttons as well. But for now, we can only create a new command buttons with the PowerFX. In terms of the more modern form designer, currently we cannot add the custom PCF controls. We cannot filter lookup field. We cannot create the business rules or customize form elements with more formatting options like having changing the width of the components. And all these features will be coming in the new modern form designer in this release wave, but only in this May 2022. So after all these maker experience, there's another changes in the flow is allow the user to resubmit the multiple flows at the same time. So if you have like 20 or 30 flows fail for some reason, you go and fix some full spots and select multiple flows, and you can resubmit multiple flows at once. And just like how we have undo button in the form designer or the Canvas app designer, the Flow Studio will also have this undo button, right? If you make some changes and you want to roll it back, you can click on this undo button. I think this one is already there. We can see it in our environment. The solution list show a warning for the correct connection reference, which doesn't connect to the connection. So if you have some connection references after importing, maybe you might have imported using the classic solution explorer, and then some of the connection references are not updated with the connection, you will see this error message. And another thing is it's going to be really helpful for us to identify the role for the flow runs. So currently with the flow run only shows like the timestamp. So if you want to find out the particular flow run for particular Dataverse record or role, we need to go and open up and check it out what's the GUID for each one. But with the new feature, it will allow you to specify the flow run identifier, and it will show as the new column so that you can have at a glance, you can see, okay, this flow run is particular to this particular records row ID, GUID. And there are some OData editor improvements in the cloud flows, but only for the SharePoint Online connector at the moment. But hopefully we also get in the Dataverse connector to build, instead of building the flow filter query by hand or using the other tools to generate the filter query. There are a few minor updates to the Cloudflow. One of the things is the user can see the solution reference in the flow details page. Solution aware flows will be show up on the My Flow list. and the flow ownership support for the service principal. So what this means is currently, if you create the service principal connection references, only the user who creates and authenticates with the service principal connection can see it. If let's say the flow, the consultant 2 create a new flow with the Dataverse connector, they cannot see and use this particular connection reference. So now in this release wave 1, they will allow sharing of these connections with the service principals. And another thing is handling null value in the burst JSON action. Currently, if there's a null in the burst JSON, if we don't have it in the format, it will just throw an error. I guess that's all for all of the things. So yeah, Rami, over back to you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Linn. It's quite a comprehensive list of things, and we probably just scratched the surface of all that is included in the release notes. I always find those sessions tricky to run because it's just so much, and 1 hour is not enough. Obviously, this is 6 months, probably more worth of work that Microsoft has put a lot of hard effort into it. And then just covering it in 1 hour is probably not a good idea. But what we can do is, as those features are enabled into the platform, then we can talk a little bit more about them in the upcoming sessions. So we'll schedule them for future sessions in there. So Marianne and Linn, if you want to switch on your cameras, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to go off mute, ask them, or type it into the chat. I'm happy to answer those. Yeah, there's quite a lot of really interesting things. And as we demonstrated, Microsoft is trying to enable some of those features and then to release them as quickly as possible. So some of them might not have a user interface to use, such as the ones that I had to trigger using either the OData endpoint or using XRM Toolbox or using PowerShell. Others are only available for some streams, so for example, for SharePoint, but not for Dataverse yet. And then another one would be sort of the limitations of the PowerFX formulas on columns that is only available in Teams as opposed to the entire Dataverse. So yeah, there's probably, some of those features will be available for the rest of the platform eventually. Cool. Thank you, Ralph, for attending. And if you guys don't have any more questions, going once, going twice. Cool. Thank you very much for attending, everybody. I'll have the recording up on our YouTube channel. And, if someone else didn't get the chance to watch it, then we'll have it available in there. Thank you very much, Marianne, for covering the marketing stuff. Thank you, Linn, for covering whatever I could not cover because there was so much. We did cover a lot, though. So, yeah, have a nice afternoon, and we'll see you next
Rami.
month. Thanks,
You
guys.
guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Cheers.